Welcome to episode 4 in our series on Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto's The Path of the Just. And we're up to chapter 4, and this chapter deals with the idea of acquiring vigilance. We're still on the rung of vigilance. And I think this chapter is quite long, so I'm going to split it up into 2 episodes. And in this episode, we're going to discuss the various types of motivation that lead us to the various levels of vigilance, and why it's important to be vigilant, and what's expected of a real, true, committed servant of God, because you have to set your standards as high as possible. It's no good falling short, even slightly. You've got one chance to do this. If God has somehow indicated to you that He's watching you more closely and that you have to work for Him, you mustn't slack, and you mustn't mess up the chance. You've got to do everything you can and almost do it to perfection, or have the idea of perfection as your benchmark. And if you succeed, you've done the best you can do, and that's what you should be aiming for. Keep your aim high. So the Ramchal begins, chapter 4, acquiring vigilance. Generally speaking, the virtue of vigilance is acquired through the learning of Torah, as Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair said in the beginning of the Brisa, and he was referring to Avodah Zarah 20b. Torah brings one to vigilance. However, specifically, what brings one to vigilance is the contemplation of both the gravity of the divine service that man is obligated to fulfill and the exactitude of divine judgment in these matters. He will arrive at this through the analysis of those events written in Scripture and through study of the teachings of the sages of blessed memory, in which these ideas are highlighted. This type of contemplation can lead to the motivation of 3 distinct kinds of individuals, each in accordance with his level: those who are truly wise, those who are of a lesser aptitude, and the general masses. Those who are truly wise will be motivated when they recognize that they should aspire only for perfection and nothing less, and that there is no harm greater than the lack of perfection and one's remoteness from it. Once this becomes clear, and once it becomes evident that the means leading towards this are appropriate deeds and character developments, they will surely never agree to decrease in these means or any laxity concerning them. For it would already have become clear to them that if these means were decreased or were diluted to a significant degree, they would not achieve perfection. Rather, it would be lacking in proportion to the deficiency in their efforts, the end result being that they would lack perfection. This would be a terrible misfortune and a great tragedy for them. Therefore, they have no choice but to augment the means, strictly implementing all the conditions involved. They will find neither rest nor peace as they worry over what they lack in order to achieve the desired perfection. This is what Shlomo HaMelech, Olav HaShalom, said in Proverbs 28:14. Praiseworthy is the man who is always fearful. And our sages of blessed memory have commented in Brachot 68. This was written in reference to the words of the Torah. The summit of this level of motivation, which is one of the most praiseworthy of levels, is referred to as fear of sin. This means that a person should constantly fear and worry lest he find himself within a particle of sin that prevents him from attaining the perfection that he must strive for. Regarding this striving for perfection, our sages of blessed memory have said, and he refers to Gemara Baba Basra 75 Amud Aleph by way of analogy. This teaches us that everyone is burnt by his peer's canopy or his peer's stature. The reason for this is not jealousy, which only befalls those who lack good sense, as I will write about further on with the aid of heaven. Rather, he sees himself as deficient in a level of perfection that he is capable of attaining, just like his peer has attained it. Therefore, through the process of contemplation, one who is truly wise will surely not deviate from being vigilant in his deeds. So the Ramchal is talking about a Talmud Chacham, or a pious person who sees other pious people and sees their higher madregas or levels and looks, but not with a look of jealousy. Perhaps there's a tinge of jealousy there, because it's probably not the worst thing. If you feel a bit of jealousy that you want to reach the heights of a pious person, that should be a drive. But the Ramchal is saying it shouldn't be a jealousy. It should more be like he should be more like somebody who feels he can attain it himself. He just has to put the effort in and go through the process and the required steps to reach the levels of this other pious person that he or she admires. And also you're vigilant because you're afraid of sin. The fear of sin is that you don't want to mess up your chance. You see a lot in society life, where there are politicians or prime ministers or presidents that are doing a decent job, and suddenly it comes out they're having an affair, and their whole life collapses around them because they couldn't resist the temptation of lowering their standards temporarily, and they got bitten for it badly. And you think to yourself, you know what, these people, they live one life, they're going to be written down into history as either great people or people who messed up their chance big time. And a lot of the time people mess their chance up, and you must use that as a fuel to keep yourself as close to perfection as possible, not to mess up. It shouldn't be that people who hold high office, whether it be in a political life or any other sort of monarchy or anything, you shouldn't let your standards slip. If you're a servant of God, you are serving the greatest monarch in the universe, and you've got to take that chance and not settle for anything less than perfection. And anything that you think would come within a hair's breadth of reducing that level, you have to avoid, well, like the plague. So the Ramchal continues. Those of lesser aptitude will be motivated by the power of their own perceptions, i.e., in accordance with their striving for honor. It is obvious to any religiously committed person that in the true world, the world to come, all levels of spirituality are allocated solely in accordance with one's deeds. Only the one who is greater in deeds than his peer will be elevated, while he who has few deeds to his credit will find himself humiliated. How then can a person ignore his own conduct or limit his efforts in this domain if afterwards, when he is no longer able to rectify his error, it will cause him great anguish? So maybe the idea of hell or Gehinnom is that you realise that you've missed your chance, you missed the boat, and you're stuck in an existence that doesn't allow you to perform mitzvot like you can do on this plane of reality. Maybe that's the hell that people talk about, which must be, like the Ramchal says, it will cause him great anguish. And the Ramchal continues, yet there are foolish people whose only desire is to lighten their load. They say, why weary ourselves with so much piety and abstinence? It is sufficient that we not be included among the wicked who have been sentenced to Gehinnom. We need not push our way into the innermost parts of Gan Eden. If we do not receive a large portion, we will settle for a small portion. For us, that is sufficient, and we do not intend to increase our responsibilities in this area. Someone taking the easy comfort zone route of life. That's what he's referring to. We have one question for such people. in this world of transiency, could they so readily endure seeing one of their friends honoured and elevated among them and ruling over them, or even more so, one of their servants, or one of the poor whom they have regarded with scorn and contempt? Would they not be filled with anguish, and would their blood not boil inside them? Surely they could not endure it. We see with our own eyes how a man labours to elevate himself above everyone and to establish his place amongst those who are more eminent. This is the factor of envy at work, and if one sees his peer promoted while he remains at an inferior level, he endures what he is forced to endure because he can't prevent it, yet within his heart the wound festers. So interesting point. If I heard something recently that it's not greed that turn people insane and drive things in the world. It's actually envy. But I think that's very, very true. So if you could imagine, if people would have the same zeal in trying to serve God as they would to obtain money or obtain honour, there'd be a lot of pious people about. And the Ramchal continues, therefore, if they find it so intolerable to be humiliated on levels that are illusory and false, where an inferior level is just a matter of externals and all aggrandizement is nothing more than vanity and falsehood, how will they endure seeing themselves as inferior to those same people who presently are inferior to them? And this is in the realm of the true, the precious and the eternal, although in the present the perspective of eternity is neither recognized nor valued, which is why no one is concerned about it. Nevertheless, when its time comes, these people will certainly recognize it for what it is, to their anguish and shame. Surely this will only be a source of intense and eternal suffering. So you see that their tolerance, when they insist upon lightening their workload, is nothing more than the deceptive temptation of their evil inclination, and not at all objective. If they would only see the truth of the matter, this temptation would lose its hold over them. However, since they do not pursue the truth and continue to err in accordance with their desires, the temptation will only be removed when this is no longer available of any avail to them. It will then no longer be within their control to repair what they have destroyed. This is what Shlomo HaMelech, Olav Hashalom, said in Ecclesiastes chapter 9 verse 10. Whatever you can do while you have the strength, do, for there is no deed, nor account, nor knowledge. This refers to, I think that means after death. This refers to what a man does not do while he has still the power that his Creator has given him, the power of choice that is given to him to employ during his lifetime. When he has free will and is commanded to use it, he will no longer be able to implement it in the grave and in the lower world, since the power of choice will no longer be in his hands. For whoever fails to increase his good deeds in his lifetime will not be able to do so later on, and he who has not drawn up a balance sheet of his actions will not have time to do so afterwards. And he who has not become wise in this world will not become wise in the grave. That is what it says in Koheles chapter 9:10. For there is neither deed, nor accounting, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the lower world where you will be going. That which will motivate the masses, however, will be the concept of reward and punishment. When they perceive the exactitude of judgment, it should cause them to tremble and be filled with fear. For who can stand confidently on the day of judgment, and who can be vindicated before his Creator, whose acuity of observation takes in all things, small or great? And so our sages of blessed memory say, and he quotes from Chagiga 5b, and he informs a person regarding all his conversations. That's from Amos 4:13. Even a casual conversation between a husband and a wife is related to him at the time of judgment. They also said, and he quotes from Yevamos 1:1b, and all around him it is extremely turbulent. That's from Psalms 50 verse 3, which teaches us that the Holy One, blessed be He, judges His righteous down to a hair's breadth. And I think we're going to stop the episode there. In the next episode, we're going to deal with examples of great personalities in the Torah that were judged by God absolutely with perfect justice. And sometimes you think, well, we're going to discuss them in the next episode, but it just goes to show if God deals perfect justice, He has to. If you sin, even a light sin, He has to punish you as pious a person you are. Sometimes it would feel strange, and it does when you look at the characters in the Torah, so great, but they were punished for such minor things. You say to yourself, why? So what if I suffer? Surely I'm deserving. If Moshe Rabbeinu can be punished for his sins, or Avraham Avinu, surely. And God shouldn't let things slide with me. Why would I ever think that? So we're going to bring a lot of examples in the next episode of personalities from the Torah that were judged in perfect justice, because God cannot let things slide with people. He can perhaps delay judgments, or delay punishment, or minimize punishment, or spread out punishment, but He cannot avoid it, because the same way you are punished for a sin, you have to be rewarded for every good deed that you do. Everything has to be done with kind of divine perfection and perfect judgment, and we'll discuss more about that in the next episode for the second half of chapter 4.